How many of you have ever had a restless night? Anybody in here have trouble going to sleep at night? Where you at? We're usually the ones with bags under our eyes. You roll around a bunch of times. Your mind is wandering in all different directions. You're getting frustrated. You're like, gosh, why can't I just fall asleep? You lay your head down on a pillow, and all of a sudden, all the things that you didn't accomplish the day before, the week before, or whatever, start rolling through your mind, and you find yourself agitated and restless, feeling like you can't fall asleep. Or maybe you're like me, and that it's not just that. I have a hard time just sitting still and doing nothing. Any piddlers in the room? Where you at? It's good for you to admit it. I have to be doing something. If I sit too long, then I find myself agitated at people around me. Just confession time. Thank you for one person agreeing with me, Tanner. I have to be doing something. And so we live in a restless world. We live in a world where it's never enough. We have to have more, and it's got to be better, and it's got to be newer and faster. We find ourselves longing for this next thing, and we get antsy living in this world. It's the broken nature that we live with in this restlessness. And we could try as hard as we want to, but nothing in this world is ever going to fill it up. A new job, a new title, a new vehicle, anything that you could want or desire is never going to be found in this world, or the things of this world, or the carnal things of this world. I heard it said this way years ago, is that there's a God-shaped hole in the heart of every human being, and only God is the one that can fill it. There's a God-shaped hole in the heart of every human being, and only God can fill that hole. But we strive in all of our might and power and strength to look to find things that we might be able to fill up and find satisfaction, and to calm the restlessness that we have in our life. We're going to be continuing our Summer in the Psalm series today, and the psalm that we're covering today is going to address this restlessness and what the antidote is for that. So Psalm chapter 84, if you have your Bibles, is where we're going to be. We're going to be covering the entire psalm, which is 12 verses. Psalm chapter 84, this is what it says. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. My soul longs, yes, faints for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh sing for joy to the living God. Even the sparrow finds a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young at your altars. O Lord of hosts, my King and my God. Blessed are those who dwell in your house, ever singing your praise. Selah. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, and whose heart are the highways to Zion. As they go through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The early rain also covers it with pools. They go from strength to strength. Each one appears before God in Zion. O Lord God of hosts, hear my prayer. Give ear, O God of Jacob. Selah. Behold our shield. O God, look on the face of your anointed, for a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness. For the Lord God is a sun and shield, and the Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, blessed is the one who trusts in you. This psalm is written by the sons of Korah. I would argue that this is one of the most well-known psalms that we have in the book, because even if you're newer to the scriptures, you're kind of searching your way and finding your way through this Christianity thing. Maybe you're not even a follower of Jesus yet, and you're kind of just testing the waters out. There are lines in here that we know and we have understood and we have memorized. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. Like the verse 1 where he says, how lovely is your dwelling place. Like there are things in this verse, in this passage, that we know very, very well. Now the sons of Korah, they wrote 11 different psalms in the book of Psalms. And in those 11 psalms, the main idea and thought is worship, because the sons of Korah come from the tribe of Levi, the Levites, whose responsibility and And what they're called to do was to take care of the worship at the temple of God. They were to participate and host the presence of God, assist those around coming from all over the region to worship at the temple. This is the life of a Levite, the sons of Korah. So let's look back at verse 1. He says, my soul, how lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. How lovely is your dwelling place. This is what is known as a pilgrimage psalm, meaning that when the Jews would make their way to Jerusalem for one of the three pilgrimage festivals, you have the Passover, you have the Feast of Weeks, and then the Feast of Tabernacles. These are the pilgrimage festivals that they would travel from great distance to be able to go to worship. There was a requirement within a reason to make sure you were in Jerusalem on these festivals. And this psalm was meant to be sung as the Jews were making their way to the temple. How lovely is your dwelling place. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere, preparing their hearts for what was going to take place as they worshiped. There was so much preparation in the heart of the Jews as they would make their way to the courts, the temple, Solomon's temple, to worship God, to make sacrifice, to burn it on the altar, to live out the life that God had called them to live. There is so much preparation. They would read the Psalms of Ascent, and each step on the way up to the temple, they would read a line of the step, reminding themselves over and over every single time when they would make their way into the temple, I am here to worship the Creator and the sustainer of all things in this life. Preparation. How lovely is your dwelling place. Now, the temple, Solomon's temple, was a beautiful place. It sat on top of the hill in Jerusalem in the middle of the city, and it stood out among all the other buildings and homes and places that were around. It was this beautiful designed building that was built by hand, and I don't think I've ever done this before, but I went on, I wanted to be one of the cool kids, so I went on ChatGPT. And I asked ChatGPT to recreate a rendering of Solomon's temple. So we have a couple of pictures here. This is the inner court, right? Like you're in it right now. ChatGPT just took you to the inner court of God. You have the water basin here. There's a few things that aren't necessarily proper or right with it, but ChatGPT, get what you get, right? Let's go to the next slide. This is what it would look like in some form or fashion from the outside of the temple. And so the Jews would be making their way to worship God at Solomon's temple and reciting these words, how lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord. How lovely is your dwelling place. Better is one day here than 1,000 elsewhere. Now, I want to give you a clarification. I use ChatGPT to search a few things, but I don't use it to write my sermons. I just want to give a clarification. I'm writing my own sermons because it's out there, folks. Trust me. The temple was beautiful. It was this elaborate, just beautiful place where they would come to worship God. But it wasn't just that it was to be beautiful in person. The beauty that the psalmist is writing about is the beauty of the one who resided there. The beauty and the focus of the beauty was on the one that was residing in this temple. Like how lovely is your dwelling place? Not because the place is beautiful, but because who is dwelling there is beautiful and powerful and mighty. Now, in ancient times, church buildings were a place of art and beauty. If you've ever been to Europe and you go to some of these churches, you know that like all we have now is just metal shells. Like you look at these churches that have been around for thousands of years, and you look at the stained glass that was hand carved and painted and placed in these church buildings. Like it's hard to imagine. There was this beautiful, beautiful experience when you'd walk into these churches to experience the beauty around you so that your focus and attention could be on the beauty of God. I kind of miss that. I wish that I was born in a different time. Because I miss old buildings with high arches and stained glass and hand-worn pews. Not as comfortable as the chairs you're sitting in right now, but beautiful. Maybe I'm just getting old and grumpy. Perfect timing. I feel that same way. Do we really get the weight of what the psalmist is saying? How lovely is your dwelling place, God? How lovely. I long to be where you reside in your presence. Like the gathering of the people of God, even in our day and time, do we understand the weight of what we are doing, that we're gathering as the people of God to worship the creator of the universe, and not simply to say a few songs where there's lines on a screen, but to say, we are here to worship God. What a privilege. What an honor, what a responsibility that he has given us to come to him and sing these songs and to worship and to declare his goodness to those around us. This is a place where heaven meets earth, God dwelling among his people. Robert Benedetto said it this way: worship in such a context is not merely the fulfillment of an obligation, but a transforming experience of joy and delight found only in the grandeur of God's presence. Far too many in our day miss out on the weight of this, and we end up taking worship flippantly. We just pass through. We come in with unprepared hearts, just checking a box. I've done my duty because I'm a Christian and I live in the South. I must check the box. I go to church and here it is. Here is all of me. And so I just kind of check it and we move on about our week, and it becomes another task that we do. What would church look like for us if we came in with prepared hearts? What if we came in with hearts that says, Lord, I'm not just coming to worship at church, I'm coming into church worshiping. I'm preparing my heart for what you are going to do this morning. What would our church look like if that was the heart that we had when we came in? Let's look at verse 2. My soul longs, yes, faints for the courts of the Lord. My heart and flesh sing for joy to the living God. Now the psalmist has either he has been away from the temple from some time, or he has in mind the pilgrim that was going to be making their way to the temple that hadn't been there in some time. And so he's got this idea and this picture in his head. This is before the time of Jesus. This is before the time where Jesus was crucified. The temple veil was torn, and everyone had access to the presence of God. You had to go to Jerusalem to be able to worship properly and see the place where worship was taking place, where heaven met earth. Now imagine a pilgrim walking up to the temple, sees it off in the distance, and says, how lovely is your dwelling place. I finally see it. I'm finally about to experience the presence of God. It's like my soul is dwindling without your presence. I have to be in your presence, God. I can't make it another day without it. And then he says this really interesting line: my heart and my flesh sing for joy. My heart and my flesh sing for joy. Really interesting line, because some people have said that maybe they come from different backgrounds or traditions, or maybe a different flavor of what we call Christianity. They might say, well, they're just a little bit too expressive in their worship. They need to tone it down. Now, I'm not saying we need to be wild and crazy and run around all the things. That's not what I'm saying. But what the psalmist is saying, when God has gotten a hold of your heart, how can your heart and your flesh not respond to the goodness of God? How can your heart and your flesh not respond to the goodness of God? Now, I grew up in a worship pastor's home. My dad still leads worship every single Sunday. I love worship. It's been a part of my life since I was born. In fact, I love worship so much that Lindsay has told me, hey, Derek, I can hear you singing on the front row over my headphones. I sing loud. I'm expressive, and I get that. Like, not everybody has this big bubbly personality and like, woo, I just love to be around people and I want people to see me, and not everybody's like that. We get that. But there's something inside of us when we are captured by the goodness and the grace of God that says, I can't help but respond in my heart and my flesh. Daniel Estes says it this way, is that this passion for worship ignites the whole person, including his heart and flesh. When you've prepared your heart and you come into the room to worship, it's like, wow, I can't help but want to express what God has done for me. Now, I want to give you this clarification. I'm not telling you how you need to worship. I'm not prescribing that if you don't raise your hands and if you don't shout, then you're not really worshiping. That's not my role. But if you're holding back because you're worried about somebody else, or maybe you don't sing as beautifully as Jacob, and you're thinking like, I just don't want people to know, like, who cares? Sing as loud and off key as you want, as long as you're worshiping Jesus. Just worship. Just worship. Let's look at verse 3. Even the sparrow finds a home, and the swallow a nest for herself where she may lay her young at your altars. O Lord of hosts, my King and my God. And I love this line because it shows the humanity of the writer. The psalmist catches a glimpse of a bird that has made their nest in the walls of the temple, the outer courts of the temple, and it kind of catches his attention, and he becomes jealous of this bird. Not about you, but I don't think I've ever been jealous of a bird. I've never saw a crow or what we call the Walmart birds. You know what I'm talking about? The Walmart birds? I think they're inbred birds because they just don't have a lot of sense. Some of you will get that later. Thank you, Sam. I've never looked at birds and thought, wish I was a bird. Never. Not in my life. I love nature, but I don't want to be a bird. Actually, we have windows on the front of our house, a lot of windows. It's like nothing but windows on the front of our house. And I don't know, once every couple of weeks, we'll be sitting on the couch and hear, doom. Like, what was that? And you see a little bird shaking on the front porch. Oh. All I was asking, is it a dove? Maybe we could eat it. Think about nature for a moment. For a bird to make their home, what are some of the things they need? They need comfort. They need security. They need to know that they're going to be taken care of, right? Like there's provision around. What are the very needs of the human heart? We need safety. We need security. We need provision. We need to know that we're taken care of. Like all the things that we try to search for and accomplish in this world, what the psalmist is saying is you can only find those things in the Creator, where there's safety, there's security, there's provision. Look at verse 4. Blessed are those who dwell in your house, ever singing your praise. Selah. Can we be honest for a moment? Let's have a church honesty moment. Have you ever been in a church service, a worship service, and you're thinking, this worship is taking entirely too long? Y'all are afraid to answer. Everyone's like, don't, this is a bait. I'm not doing it. You find yourself looking at your watch and you're like, Jacob, get your phone out, take a few pictures as they answer this question, okay? You're looking at your watch, you're like, oh, golly, another song? My goodness, like, I think God gets the point, you know? That's what you're thinking, right? Like, in our humanity, sure, we have moments where we're like, wow, this feels like it's taken a long time. And here's the thing, everyone has an opinion on worship. Everyone is wrong. Yeah, what was that again? I don't care at collectivechurch.tv. That's it. The Levites were considered to be a group of people that were responsible for the worship of God, Yahweh, in the temple. And what the psalmist is saying, like, what a gift. What a gift that the Levites can every single day wake up and participate in the worship and the singing to Creator. Now compare that to how we respond when like worship goes a little bit longer than we want it to, and we're like, this church, I mean, come on. And they say, no, like, what a gift. What a gift. that you could wake up every single day and sing praises to Yahweh. There's a difference there. Now, there's a word in this verse at the end we skip over, Selah. Is it a word? Is it just a 90s Christian band? What is it? That's for the church kids. This word Selah really means to pause or to rest, kind of a break. And I'm telling you this because there are two different times in this chapter that the word Selah is there. What it is doing is breaking this psalm up into 3 stanzas or 3 verses, okay? So that was the first verse. First stanza is about the grandeur and the beauty of God, that it's a privilege to worship Him. Let's look at verse 5. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, and whose heart are on the highways to Zion. As they go through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The early rain covers it with pools. They go from strength to strength. Each one appears in God before Zion. The second stanza focuses really on those who are traveling from far away. Some of the longer travelers would hike up to 15 days to make it to the temple for worship. 15 days. I don't know about you. I get frustrated when I have to walk around Disney World for more than a day. And there's things to do. There's turkey legs to eat and Dole Whip to have and all the things, right? But I get frustrated because I'm walking more than 10,000 steps. And they're like, who does this as a human being? 15 days they would hike and travel to Jerusalem. And we're not talking about lush environments. We're talking desert places where they would hike, not a lot of water, not a lot of fresh food, just hiking, making their way in this desert. Now, have that in your mind when you see these verses. It says, their strength is in you. They make the place of desert like the place of springs, like the rain makes a pool of water in the middle of the desert. This is all allegorical. He's not saying there's literal springs. They don't get to like halfway to Jerusalem and like, look, there's a pool. No, he's saying, because your focus is on God, you know what you're going to experience when you get to Jerusalem and to the temple, the very presence of God, and it gives you strength because no matter what you're walking through, you know what is coming. It says the valley of Baca. Most scholars believe this is in reference to a balsam tree, which thrives in dry climates and desert kind of environments. And so he's saying, like, listen, this is the place that they're walking. They're walking across the desert. And think about what they're experiencing. Long travels, no clean water. They don't have a refrigerator or an Arctic cooler or Yeti cooler. Like, there's nothing. He says, strength to strength they travel because they're going to the temple. Now, compare that with what our lives look like, how long they're traveling, the conditions that they're traveling in to be able to make it to the very presence of God, and then contrast it with our lives. You wake up on a Sunday morning, it's kind of storming and rainy, and you're like, I just bought those new shoes. No, you probably don't make that decision because you're a better Christian than that, right? But you're like, ooh, it's kind of rainy and stormy. Maybe we should make breakfast and we'll watch church later, which always means we're not going to watch church later. Or maybe you wake up and there's construction on 1488, as it is every single day. It's gonna be kind of hard to get there. I might have to wait at the red light a little bit longer. You see the difference in the gift of worship from somebody of the ancient time towards the way that we flippantly treat worship today. So many things get in our way of being able to worship Christ, to worship the Creator, but it's just the reality of the life that we live, and God is calling us to something different, something more. Let's look at verses 8 and 9. O Lord, God of hosts, hear my prayer. Give ear, O God of Jacob, Selah. Behold, our shield, O God, look on the face of your anointed. This is the only petition in this Psalm chapter 84, where the psalmist is asking something of God. which I think is a very important point, because how many times do we go to God and we're continually asking for things, but we're not actually proclaiming his goodness and thankfulness for what he's done? We treat him many times like a vending machine rather than a father. Look on the face of your anointed. What the psalmist is talking about is the king of Israel. Look on the face of the king of Israel, because the king of Israel played a vital role in the life of a Jew. They operated more as a priest than a king at this time. And so what he's really getting at is, Lord, would you continue to bless the king of Israel so that we can continue to worship? Because we see all throughout the Old Testament what happens when the king leads the people of God astray. They end up in some far land where they're living in captivity in Babylon. They're living under the control of someone else. So this psalmist is saying, Lord, would you continue to bless your king so that we can have the freedom to come to the temple to be able to worship? Now, this, in our day and time, in the culture that we live in, it doesn't make much sense, because we live in such a free place that we can show up to any church at any point, worship and enjoy and experience the goodness of God. Like there's a beauty in that, but there's many people across this globe that don't have that ability or that freedom. We're continually seeing pressure and persecution placed on Christians across the globe. We got to remember, this book that we read and study is not written for Americans. It's written for the people of God, which are very diverse, speak many different languages across the globe, look very different than what we look like most of the time here in Magnolia. So the psalmist is saying, like, Lord, would you continue to bless your king so that we can continue to worship? I would imagine the church in Iran, it's probably a prayer that they're praying, Lord, would you move in power so that we could worship in freedom? The church in Vietnam that has to hide in secret and worship in the mountains so that if the police show up, they can run and hide into the woods of the mountains. Lord, would you move in power so that we could worship in freedom? Church, don't take for granted the opportunity we have to worship in freedom. It's a gift. Verse 10. For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. This is one of my favorite lines, and not just in the Psalms, probably in all of the scriptures. We just sang and tagged a song that we beat over the head of our people all the time in church growing up. The better is one day. We sang it all the time. Better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. And here's the question that just keeps coming to my mind as we read what the psalmist is talking about, and what the call for us is today is, do you, as a follower of Jesus, do you have a hunger inside of you to see and experience the very presence of God in your life? Is there a longing inside of you that says, I can't make it another day without being in the presence of God? I've got to be in the presence of God. Because according to the psalmist, it's better than anything that we can experience in this world. Just one day in your presence, God. It's better than anything that I'll experience in a lifetime. What a gift that God would send us his presence, not just for some ritual, but so that we could experience him. And then the psalmist uses this term doorkeeper. If you study that word, there's a couple different meanings. There's an actual office of doorkeeper for the tribe of Levi. But many scholars believe this is in reference to a beggar at the door. It's where this beggar, who is not ceremonially clean, could not go into the presence of God, unworthy to worship in that moment. And so imagine what the psalmist is thinking, like, I would rather be a beggar at the door of the temple, to where I can only just get a little bit close. I can't even get all the way into the very presence of God, just a little, but I'm on the outside of the temple, begging for mercy, begging for food or supplies or money. I'd rather be that person than to dwell and live in the tents of the wicked. This is the value of the presence of God that the psalmist declares for us. I'd rather be a doorkeeper. I'd rather be on the outside of the gates begging for things that I don't have because the presence of God is so amazing. I'd rather just be there than to live in the tents of wicked people. Verse 11 and 12. For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, blessed is the one who trusts in you. He does not withhold good or blessings to those who walk uprightly. This has double meaning. Those who walk, he's talking about those that would make the pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Blessed are those who are making the travel. But also, he's saying, blessed are those who, when it's not time to travel to Jerusalem, are walking uprightly in the ways of the kingdom. No good thing does he withhold. Now, we have to be careful here because this is not for us to take a mentality of legalism or to turn God into a vending machine to where we obey him and live rightly so that we will get something from him. That's not the call. But there is a call that says, when you live the way that God has called us to, as he say, no good thing will he withhold from you. We do not obey. We do not live uprightly so we can get things from God. That's transactional. And the relationship that we have with the Creator is not transactional. In fact, the only transaction that's happened is the one that he paid for. We do it because we've seen the power and the work of God, and we do it out of love and worship towards him. I don't live uprightly so that I can get something from God. I live uprightly because of what he's already done for me. And because of the work of Jesus on the cross and in the resurrection, we no longer have to travel long for worship. In fact, we live in Texas. There's a church on every corner, it seems like, right? Some of you passed 5, 10, 15 churches on your way here this morning. And some really good churches. But the reality is you're not having to travel far. You're not having to travel 15 days hiking to be able to worship. We don't have to go on this long journey to experience his presence. We as New Testament believers get to experience his presence on a daily basis every single day because of the Son of God, who came from heaven to earth in human form, suffered and was crucified outside of the gate so that you and I could have access to the presence of God. I want you to think about that doorkeeper for a moment. The doorkeeper who had to stay on the outside of the temple gates was not able to go into the temple to worship. And see, we have this amazing Savior named Jesus that went outside of the temple gates, was beaten, was crucified, and resurrected outside of the temple gates so that we could have access to the presence of God. And every single day, as a follower of Jesus, you get to experience his power in its fullest. The question, I believe, is do you long, do you hunger for the presence of God in your life? As Pastor John Tyson says, God comes where he is wanted. And I don't know about you, but I want God in my life. I want the presence of God in my life. Not so that I can respond in a certain way or have some kind of reaction to the presence of God, but because it is in the very presence of God where the literal things that we can't control are changed in the spiritual realm. Just go bow your heads with me this morning.